This week on the Virtual Skeptics, Bob contemplates a career change. Eve is straining to avoid scatological humor. Barb tells you something sensational. And Tim actually wrote a trivia question for the show. That's what it says. I'm your host, Brian Gregory. The first joke that came to mind, I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
But I do have a new name for the show. Since, you know, we're all unhappy with the virtual part is the part we're not happy with. So we're going to rename the show to a name I came up with. You know, some of you I invited to the Facebook group. Bob, are you a member of the League of Grumpy Know-It-Alls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
like that.
Grumpy know-it-alls.
Yes.
I've been called a grumpy know-it-all for years, so I fit right in.
So, welcome to the League of Grumpy Know-It-Alls. Everybody who's watching. Let's see. We do this thing every week, and we got people here, so I have to introduce them. First up, we've got Entropy Blaskiewicz, CSI's conspiracy guy, web columnist, blogger, and Skeptic Humanities, and Swift blog contributor. We have
Get off my lawn.
Get off his lawn. Siebert, editor and blogger at Skeptical Humanities and contributor to Skepticality. Tim Farley, former JREF fellow, blogger at SkepTools, Skepticality contributor and creator of What's the Harm, and Barbara Drescher, former psychology instructor. I almost used an F. I really did. Blogger at ICBS Everywhere and contributor to numerous skeptical projects, including The Odds Must Be Crazy. And my lips are just not working this week. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brian.
Welcome to the show. Got a chat. I hear an echo. Yes, there's an echo. I apologize in advance for all echoes and technical problems. They're all my fault. Just so that's clear. Okay. Now we got that out of the.
There was never a shadow of a doubt, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I blame entropy. I'm going to use that the entire show. Okay, if you're watching and you want to participate in some form, fashion, or some other third thing, you can post on Twitter with hashtag Virtual Skeptics. You can comment on the YouTube, and you can use the Q&A app to ask a question. I'm stressing that. And we will do our best to work it into the show. Who's up for? Oh, I guess we got to do the thing. You know the thing we do every week. The deal with a thing. We have a trivia question. Every week we have a trivia question. And Tim is going to provide a trivia question because apparently he actually did one before the show.
I did. I might regret. I don't know. Today, I start the trivia question with a little factoid, which is today is Charles Fort's 140th birthday, if I'm doing the math right.
He doesn't look a day over 130.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he didn't live past 60-something, but...
and now he's a zombie.
But something else happened on this day involving a skeptic. Charles Fort, of course, is where we get the word Fortian, but there's a skeptic who says he had a skeptic epiphany on this day, August 6, 1983. Who am I talking about?
Uri Geller.
I'm going to say I don't know. So answer that question on one of those places I mentioned earlier, and we'll try to mention it in. We'll give you a good round of applause this time. We'll do a round of applause this time. We can actually do a real round of applause. Okay. The secondary quiz this week is what's the heck is on the monitors behind Brian, and I apologize again for another technical difficulty that the feed is not crystal clear so you can read and see all the details of what's going on behind me. And I apologize again because they don't change much. But if you name both monitors, you will also get a wonderful Virtual Skeptic round of applause. So there. It's a
We
threat,
won't clap for
not a
just
promise.
Is there anything else you could apologize for? Just to get it all right.
I apologize, I'm not Canadian. Never mind.
Canadians meant that.
Yes, they will probably. I will probably get hit a few times. Okay, so first up this week on our trail of adventure is the wonderful and intelligent and always fascinating Barbara Drescher.
And always ranting.
How is that? And always ranting. And always ranting.
Very sweet. I appreciated it. More than you know. Yeah, always ranting. But that's what we do, isn't it? So, yes. Most of you probably saw the discussions of the 2 Ebola patients that were entering Atlanta this week, and everybody freaked out about going to
Ebola.
Yeah, everybody. I saw some people freaking out about going to Dragon Con and stuff like that. But anyway, what I thought was really interesting was how people were painting this situation as a miracle, you know. And CNN wasn't the only one to do this, but there's a nice little link to a video and an article in the show notes about it. And ABC affiliate actually reposted the same article, but their first paragraph was 3 top-secret experimental vials stored at sub-zero temperatures were flown into Liberia last week in a last-ditch effort to save 2 American missionary workers who had contracted Ebola, according to a source familiar with details of the treatment. So the story is
some hyperbole.
Yeah.
Hyperbole.
Exaggeration.
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. Kent Brantley and missionary Nancy Wrightbowl were in Liberia. They were treating Ebola patients when both came down with the disease. They were about 3 days apart, I believe. That he started showing symptoms, and she started showing them about 3 days later. And there was an experimental serum called ZMapp that was flown to their location, but it needed to thaw before it could be administered. And Brantley had asked that the first dose be given to Wrightbowl, you know, very dramatic movie style. But for good reason. He's only 33, she's 59. He figured he had a better chance of recovering. But while he was waiting for his dose to thaw, he took a turn for the worse. And that was before she was given her dose. So plans changed, and he was given the first dose. Well, he improved a great deal after receiving the serum. And one of the reports, one of the reporters on CNN in the video says, that usually doesn't happen with these kinds of drugs. Well, how would he know? For one thing, he isn't a doctor. But also, you know, this is one patient. It's not a trial. It's not a clinical trial. There's no comparison to. You can't know how he would have responded had he not gotten the serum. Chances are the serum did make a big difference, and they've increased the funding to this group as a result, because it's very promising. But before this, you know, Sanjay Gupta, who was reporting this, noted that the drug's never been given to humans before, and they all made it sound like this was some kind of a miracle cure, and that it was top secret, and they were getting some kind of, you know, preferential treatment. They did get a little bit of preferential treatment. Usually when you give an experimental drug to somebody, you have to go through a long, tedious process, and this was sped up because people are dying very quickly of Ebola. What I thought was really interesting, though, is the producer of the segment posted a comment along with the link on her Facebook share. And the page that you'll see when you click the link is actually not the original page. Apparently, this article has been changed many times because people are complaining about the sensationalism. But what she posted, her comment was, Thursday morning, an American doctor with Ebola was nearly dead. Thursday evening, he received a dose of a top-secret experimental drug called ZMapp.
What the hell is she doing?
Yeah. Within an hour of getting the serum, he had a miraculous recovery.
Science!
Exclusive details. Yes. So then she deleted comments criticizing her characterization of it and blocked at least one user, Richard Murray. And
Go, Richard!
Just blocked him.
Wow.
But, she's left other comments. Other people have commented on it, and she just left them, including a link to Abby Smith's science blog post about it. So Abby has a blog called Irv. If you're not familiar with it, it's great. And Abby had a little post about it because Abby actually studies this stuff. So she said the experimental serum is just a monoclonal antibody therapy for Ebola. Administering exogenous antibodies as a therapy for viral infections is as is an old as dirt idea. She says that ZMapp itself is a combination of the best antibodies from two different things. She says, how do I know this? Because this information was released by the company this July. And those two things that it's a combination of are not exactly a secret, seeing as they were published in two of the most high-profile journals in the world, PNAS and Science. So Abby goes on to explain how the treatment was created and how it works, and it's interesting. You should read it.
Was it wizards in a cave?
Yeah. And it had to stew for 10 years. Yeah. And indeed, she says, if the therapy does prove to play an integral role in saving these two Ebola patients, we will probably have a fairly cheap, readily upscalable, and modifiable way to treat the current Ebola epidemic. She also said, and you have to read the rest of it to get this, but GMO viruses plus bacteria plus GMO tobacco. Not top secret. So I'm with the commenter on the producer's page who said, good medicine, poor journalism. And that's all I got for you. Other than don't be scared of this stuff.
Wow.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
So if we get this straight,
Go ahead.
So these are antibodies that have been taken from patients that have been exposed to it and had a good reaction to it or something.
Taken from unicorns.
Oh no, I don't believe so. Abby actually talks about how.
Sorry, not unicorns.
Abby talks in her post about how the virus was created, and it's interesting stuff. But she's an expert, so I'll defer to her.
Awesome. I will have to go read that post. It sounds interesting. Thanks, Barb. Do we get any questions in? Let me see. In the Q&A app, which is here. Nothing on Twitter.
I was just gonna mention. I mentioned this off air, but I'll mention it on
air. Go ahead.
It happens that my office here in Atlanta looks out on toward the Air Force Base, which is where they brought those patients in. And yesterday, when they brought Nancy Wrightbowl in, we literally watched the plane come in for a landing, like right out our window. It's like, there she goes.
Awesome. That could be history someday.
The planes are transported by magic, though. You know that, right?
Right.
Right, Bob.
No, the conspiracy theory that I've been hearing related to Ebola is that it's now this outbreak is an occasion to sell Ebola vaccine. There is no Ebola vaccine.
Right.
So no, it's probably not.
So they think
it's the classic problem. There aren't enough patients to
right.
make a vaccine economically viable.
Yeah.
You know.
So I don't know.
What did you say, Barbara?
I was kind of categorizing that theory as somewhat of a false flag type.
Yeah.
Usual.
Could be.
One question on Twitter, is the Q&A thingy busted again? I have no idea.
It is a question.
I think I enabled it and the app is up, so you can try again. Maybe it's a beta. That's my theory. Okay, so who's next? Oh, Tim is next. What you talking about, Tim?
I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm playing with the player over here. It looks like Q&A is up, but we're not seeing the questions.
Yeah, for some reason.
I don't have a ton to talk about, but I did want to mention there's an interesting thing going on. There's an interesting issue with Wikipedia from time to time with anonymous edits. For some reason, deep in the dark days of Wikipedia, they decided they wanted to let people edit it anonymously. And I think it's mainly a let's make it easy, because if you have to create an account before you can edit anything, then that's going to slow people down and they'll say, screw it. So it's always been open. There are certain articles that sometimes are blocked from anonymous editing, but in general, most articles can be edited by anybody without logging in. And when that happens, they get logged by the IP address, the numerical address that your computer has on the internet. Well, years ago, someone noticed that, or occasionally it happens that somebody from an IP address will make a sort of suspicious edit that looks like maybe was motivated by some reason. And there are ways to look up IP addresses and figure out who they belong to. Now, most IP addresses belong to, like, I use Comcast here, so I'm on a Comcast IP address, and that would be all you could tell from my IP address if you had it, was that I was a Comcast customer in Atlanta. But if I worked for a major company, and you looked up my IP address, you could probably tell what company I worked for. So a few years ago, there was a neat little app that a college student had built, where he built basically a search engine where you could look that kind of stuff up and correlate it. So he found stuff where the CIA was editing articles about the CIA from their own desks at work and stuff like that. And unfortunately, because it was built by a college student, he didn't keep up with it, and it disappeared after a while. There was a new version of it that came out, I guess, about a year and a half ago, called Wiki Watcher, that some Italian researchers did. That was a similar thing, and they haven't kept up with it either. I noticed recently that it's sort of disabled. You get an error message if you try to access it. So that had sort of fallen by the wayside, and just recently, if you put my first slide up, a couple of people on Twitter, there's a lot of folks who like to build bots on Twitter, and there's a lot of annoying bots that spam people ads for iPads and
all of mine get
and malware and crap like that. But there's kind of this interesting subculture of folks building kind of interesting or at least funny little bots. And somebody built this bot called Congress Edits. And what it does is the IP addresses that are assigned to the offices of the U.S. Congress are well known. And all this bot does is watch for those IP addresses showing up on any edit on Wikipedia and just tweets the edit. And so it's like, oh, this article about Pokemon was just edited by the U.S. Congress. And it's kind of surreal and very comedic. And, of course, it's very interesting when it's an article about somebody in Congress or an interesting political issue, because then you kind of wonder what the motivation is and stuff. Well, the guy who built this put his code out there on GitHub, which is where you share open source code, and people went crazy. There's a Parliament's edit. There's this Swedish. There's like one for every major national, Congress or Parliament or whatever, and so folks are having some fun with that. And I got it in my head that maybe we need to do a skeptic version of this, but I've sort of been bouncing it around with a few folks. And the hard part we're having is whose IP addresses would we be watching, and what kind of subject areas would we do? Because there's not a lot of giant organizations in skepticism that have well-known IP addresses on the internet. The one thing that occurred to me would be Big Quacka, the companies that actually make, for instance, homeopathic remedies are well-known companies, and a lot of their addresses are known. So I've just been doing some research on that, and if anybody is interested in that, or if you are a forum operator or website operator who's a skeptic who has noticed activity like this, because this sometimes comes up in blog comments, and if you run a forum, you'll see somebody come in and it's like, who's this dude? And then you trace their IP address back and realize that it's somebody working for a company. Anybody who has information about that, let me know. Get in touch with me on Twitter or Facebook or by email, and maybe we can set something up. But it's just an idea I'm kicking around. It's kind of interesting. Might be fun. Might not turn anything up, but who knows?
Now, I see one of the weaknesses of this is that there might be people editing on a machine that happens to be on a subnet owned by a certain company but may not have anything to do with it. But
Well, certainly
maybe
you
those are the more
see-
interesting ones.
Yeah, I mean, certainly at companies, what you see is people who are just at their desk, eating their lunch, and it's like, oh, this
But
article
if
about
it's the
Star
week-
Trek is wrong, and it's not any evidence of any real.
But if it's the week that the bill on the Pokemon reauthorization package is going through, then you suspect
Did
that
not know
maybe
about that
something's
one.
going on.
You need to make sure that article's up to date so they get proper information on the
Yeah.
Pokemon. So
Yeah, well, the other thing he added to that piece of code, I noticed he's been updating it, is not only can you give it a list of IP addresses, but you can also give it a list of articles. So that Congress article will tell you not only anonymous edits to anything, but also any edit to articles about Congress people. So even if someone's logged in, you'll see as the Congress people's articles are edited. So essentially, even if someone edits from home, you'll see the change being made immediately. And there's other ways to do this. I mean, you can use a watch list on Wikipedia to do this. It's just kind of a fun way to do it on Twitter, so you get this kind of real-time feed, and it's like the instant somebody makes an edit, everybody notices, instead of noticing it like 3 days later or whatever.
yeah. And do you think this kind of visibility was what was intended, like by
the Wikipedia people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I discussed this with a couple of Wikipedia admins, and they're always a little bit, it's like, they kind of sometimes don't like things like this because they don't like a lot of it. They like for people to stay on the system and do the editing there and follow the rules and the systems that are there. And this kind of smacks of someone on the outside looking in and snarking on what they're doing.
Yeah.
But
Edit
as long
shaming.
as you don't specifically identify people, and these are just IP addresses, so we really don't know who the people are. It could be an aide, it could be somebody using the Wi-Fi in the lobby. It's hard to tell from an IP address what's going on the other end.
I'm going to have to try that. I'm going to try to go up to Congress building, see if I can get on their Wi-Fi and start editing all kinds of bizarre things on Wikipedia.
Well, and it could even be a hacker, for all you know.
Well, just so it's clear, I am not claiming that I'm going to go hack Congress, okay? I was just saying if it was open, I'd do that.
And yes, to answer that question, I am wearing a Hello Kitty.
Yes. So
I have no idea why we have Hello Kitty Band-Aids in our
who asked that
bathroom,
question?
but I had a cut on my hand right before the show.
Oh, it was Eve that asked that question. Yep. And the Q&A app does seem to be working now. A couple people posted questions, is this working? And yes, it's working. I'm sorry, I was a little bit fast in leading those questions, so I didn't see who posted those. But there's one question about... Let's read this real quick. This is for Barbara. Does anyone perhaps think that the hype about the contagiousness of Ebola and the alleged vaccine are preparing the grounds for changing that a compulsory vaccination campaign is impending? The wording's a little awkward, but you know what I mean? I guess it's
I think
impending.
I would say
Yeah.
I think he said charging, not changing.
Yeah.
In other words, that people are hyping how much Ebola is contagious in order to then later say, see, mandatory vaccinations, this was all just a plot to force us to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to get hits to their blogs. I think it's clickbait.
Yeah.
And news. I mean, news stations will do anything. They show what Joe Blow and
Kokomo.
Yeah, I mean, tweets. I don't even understand news anymore. It's not news, but I think they'll just do anything to get readers and viewers.
Yeah, that's my impression as well. But
It's just massive run-of-the-mill sensationalism.
Yeah.
Because it didn't seem to me like the same organizations that are or the same people that are fighting vaccination are have anything to do with these outlets. So
Yeah.
So there. Thank you for covering that, Tim. Is that everything? That's everything. And next, who's next? Bob is next.
Hi.
And I like to call him Entropy.
That's
Do we
Dr.
have
Entropy
slides?
to you.
Do we have slides?
I have one slide, and you will wait for it.
Okay. My hand's on the button.
Put it up now. Put it up now. Put it up now.
Okay, so
Not listening to you.
I was walking down
Spirit fight.
the other day. I was walking down the organic food aisle at the local Gordy's, which is like a Piggly Wiggly, which is like a Schnucks. And I was
We
looking.
have
know
none
any
of
of
those,
these.
by the way.
Yeah,
None of us know
Trader
what you're
Joe's?
talking about,
He
Bob.
means
grocery store. Yes.
Okay.
The regional grocery store. And I was looking at all the not noticeably better, but certainly more expensive than normal groceries sold there, and I wondered, for crying out loud, why bother? You know, why not just drop this whole skepticism thing and start an organic mushroom farm, or since I'm already in cow country, a gluten-free dairy, right? The hell with this just scraping by racket. I know all the marketing tricks that the people charging top dollar employ to siphon money from the masses. I mean, marketers' main job is basically to convince people to be snobbish about truly unimportant and irrelevant things. I can do that, right? Let's start making the system pay for old Bobbio for a change. Of course, if you're thinking of going into the gluten-free dairy business as I am, you need to consider whether or not you're willing to take the inevitable losses that come when Thor mistakes your animals for a herd of ice giants and smites the ever-loving crap out of them.
You also have to buy cows.
You also have to get cows, too. I mean, if you ever tried to siphon a cow in the middle of the night, it doesn't work. Anyway, damn it. So, a couple of interesting stories have recently appeared in the news about massive, sudden animal deaths, a phenomenon I hereby give the acronym MSAD.
Sad.
MSAD. Okay, so the most recent spate of lightning strikes started in Montana when a herd of delicious black Angus cattle was killed by a single, very well-aimed bolt of lightning. At 10:48 a.m., the Taylor family was rattled when lightning struck a small crabapple tree where the delicious cows, which are made entirely of hamburger and steak, were huddled to wait out the storm. Only about 8 of the family's cattle survived the strike. Because this is a family show, I wanted to find a funny picture of an electrocuted cow, not a graphic one. And when I Googled cow lightning, it turns out that this is actually
A thing?
it generates a rather large number of images. If you could bring up the image, Brian. Is it up?
No.
There it
There
is.
you go.
They're just sleeping, everybody.
They look like they're just
I was going to tell Eve they're just sleeping in the shade. I was really surprised that this had happened so much. Maybe I shouldn't have been, but it seems that any herding animal caught in a thunderstorm, no matter how delicious, might be susceptible to such a herd-thinning incident. In Chile, and I went back and started looking at some of these, in Chile, 54 cows were killed in a single strike in April. 9 more were killed in the same storm on another farm. On June 25th, 9 cows were killed in West Virginia, again under a tree.
Okay, wait a minute. This is evidence against evolution, isn't it?
Huh?
This is evidence against evolution?
All nature screams against evolution, Barb. All right.
Can't you hear
Well,
it scream? I can hear it
it
scream.
does suggest they aren't intelligently enough designed to get the hell away from the trees.
It's true. The Weather Service said that the 9 cows who were killed was right nearby where 22 head of cattle were killed under a tree 2 years earlier. On the 21st, in India, 4 cows were found dead floating in a pond, probably killed by a lightning strike. On the 23rd, 4 cows and a calf were killed in Idaho. They were found, again, under a tree that had been split by lightning. And then there was the most recent report in Pork Magazine, which is totally not what I thought it was.
Clearly.
171 pigs composed entirely of bacon were killed by a bolt of lightning in the Hunan province of China. These were actually being housed inside a shed.
Sriracha factory? No.
When the lightning struck, so they were inside, and it seems that the bolt seems to have traveled down a metal railing along the length of the facility. The owner was in the shed, which housed about 400 pigs, and at the time she happened to be touching that metal railing with her toe, and it knocked her on her butt and dazed her for about 10 minutes. So she was very lucky because 171 pigs were killed. So what does this all mean?
Are you dismissing too quickly the possibility that it could be aliens or Bigfoot?
It might be.
A lot of Bigfoots.
Yeah.
Well, interdimensional alien Bigfoots.
I think it was 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thor enjoys meat. It's a well-known fact.
it's true.
There you go. It's
But
all fitting
you know, the
together.
thing is, I can see
Aliens.
this. I can't see why people would look at these mass deaths. I mean, some people were mentioning this out in the blogosphere that, you see all these dead animals and you just show up one day and you see all of your animals dead and you think clearly something, massive and malicious happened and it's mysterious, therefore UFOs or whatever. But I see a too strong a consistent pattern of these animals being under trees. So it seems obvious what caused it.
The tree fell on them?
Pollen allergies?
There's probably gluten.
M. Night
probably
Shyamalan
want
scripts?
gluten. So what does this mean? To answer this, I turn to one of the lost and ancient arts of Serranomancy, which is Serranomancy, divination from lightning and thunder. And I meticulously worked this out. If you see lightning going from across the sky from left to right, that's a good sign. If it goes from right to left, that's a bad sign. And if it goes to a tree under which your cows are standing, it's a sign you're going to have a barbecue. So,
A really big barbecue.
a really big barbecue. So yeah, I looked up Serranomancy, and that was my afternoon. Also, I looked into pig behavior. I wanted to know if pigs were what's the word I'm looking for? Herd animals. Not exactly. They're matriarchal, apparently, in the wild. I can't say anything about them domesticated, but I'll leave that to the ag majors out there who watch the show. We know that we have that corner of the market pegged here.
Yeah.
That story kind of petered out at the end there, didn't it?
No, well, I got a great way to end it. There are a bunch of really good puns on Twitter.
True.
Right now.
Oh shit.
In response to the cows laying in the fields, as I guess they don't move as fast. That was Travis Estrella. Dr. Atlantis asked. I'm guessing he wanted to know if we're going to open up a Shazam burger.
Oh, that's good.
Which would be awesome.
Really a good one.
Shazam burger stand?
Shazam burger. I think I saw a bit on Mystery Dead Cows and Lightning on. Oh, that's not a pun, but hey, apparently there's a TV show. There you go. Your show. You're an option for a TV show.
Well, I was thinking about a case about 4 years ago in Atlanta where there were a bunch of animals that had died right next to a stream, as I remember it. And I went back looking for the picture of all these. It was like 10 cows or something. And I found the case, but I couldn't find the picture that I remember. And this is about the time that IIG Atlanta was starting up. And if there was a lightning strike while a bunch of cows are under trees and drinking from a creek, that could easily kill 10 cows at once. But yeah.
And it makes you wonder because the cow mutilations are like one of the, I guess, almost trope for aliens interfering.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do crop circles, and for some reason they dismember cows.
Well, what they need, you don't seem to understand that the cow anus is very precious and worth traveling light years for.
Oh. Okay.
You would know this, huh?
Hamburgers.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just can't get cow anus and Alpha Centauri. You have to go out for that.
So if we ever do open a Shazam burger, that has to be on the menu.
What do you think's in McDonald's hamburgers anyway?
I don't want to know.
Oh, we're so good.
Here's another. This is not really a question, but it was in the Q&A app. So I'm encouraging bad behavior. Aaron Johnson just posted, all those cows laying down, should we call them ground beef? And I like it.
Yeah.
Most
Out of the park.
yes. So the most pun-inducing story today, actually. So there you go.
Oh, you wait.
Thanks, Bob, for taking that by the horns. Let's see. Where is it? Okay, I'm gonna do my little music thing, and I'm gonna talk about stuff. What? No. We don't yakety sax the robots every week.
Okay.
So this guy is cool. Check that out. He's gonna kick some alien ass. I think you look in his eyes, and you can see he's thinking, get away from her, you bitch. Yes, this is a heavy lifting suit. This is an exoskeleton that's been in trials.
I was going to say, is that a piece of steel he's holding? Because that's a pretty heavy piece of steel.
Yeah, this is Daewoo Shipping and Marine Engineering, South Korean company that makes ships, makes big ships, and does a lot of carrying metal around. Did some trials over the last year on these exoskeleton suits for their workers. That essentially, it's a relatively not very agile, but very strong set of hydraulic legs, and a backpack that allows like an overhead crane to let you lift things. Now this particular suit that's pictured here has about a 60-pound lifting capacity. They were doing relatively low lifting capacity, just trying to feel it out, see how it worked. But they're tending to work up to 200 pounds. So you could have have one guy on a crew that can do heavy lifting of large objects, so you don't have to use the crane all the time. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
This is the first time that commercially they've done tests on these kind of suits, and they seem to think that they are going to be out and using them sometime next year.
I wonder how they would.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be carrying awkward loads. I don't know.
Well, they did mention
tipping over.
Yeah, there's not a lot of details in English on the web, but they did say that they can't actually walk around under load, and then they don't have a lot of twisting capability. So it's restricting on your movement, especially under load, and that would make sense.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like the aliens heavy lifter walking around with great big crates. But still, it allows you to place things in without having to use some kind of large machinery, which is very cool.
And so there's no support under the arms there. It's just all over.
It looks like, and I can only because like I said, all I can tell is from the picture. We can look closer at the picture. Most of the details on the website, unfortunately, were in Korean, and I could find someone to translate for me. But yeah, it's got, if you look along the legs, the weight is distributed onto the ground, and it's strapped to the person, but clearly the weight is not on him. The suit itself weighs quite a bit, and it'll carry its own weight, so you don't even have to worry about lifting the weight of the suit. So, but yeah, if this technology keeps going, we'll have a great powered armor to defend ourselves against the robot coming apocalypse, which is my take on this story.
If as long as the robots are under 200 pounds and don't require anything more than lifting, we're set.
Well, this is the first step. You have to walk before you run. You have to lift before you walk. You have to, I don't know.
You've lost me.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I didn't think you had to lift before you could walk.
Where did the lesions
I'm
go?
just saying it's going in the right direction. It's not going to be enough because, well, other things are going to kill us first. But it's hopeful. So there you go. That's it. I got one other story, and this is on the other side of things. That was my defense against the dark robots story of the week. And this one is my holy crap, that's creepy story of the week. And this thing, actually, the guy, I apologize, I don't remember the name of the guy on the podcast I was on last week, had talked about this briefly because he found it in the news. And I went and looked up and tried to look a little further into it. This is a crowdsourced, not the human, the thing that looks like a fan.
Oh, I thought the human was a robot.
No, I'm going to skip
This would be
forward
really...
because here we go. We'll start here. Okay, this thing is telling the story of the child and looking around and blah blah blah. It's actually got some interesting kind of Teddy Ruxpin thing going on there. And yeah, it even says, "Hey, where did you go?" When it and look, it's got targeting and everything.
Oh my God!
Face targeting.
It targets faces and follows them, and like the telepresence that's running right here, you can actually on the interface pick someone's face and it would follow them. Also, in this case, this guy comes in, it recognizes him and turns on the lights. He says, "Hey, order takeout," and it actually does. Ask some questions. The natural language processing is a little creepy, but I think that this is a demo, so it's going to be nice and smooth in the video, and the real thing is going to be more like Siri. But what were you going to say?
Which means you won't get the food you want at all.
Yeah, and there's some references to, famous robots in there. This thing is crowdsourced. It's on.
Of course it is.
Which site is this on? This is on Indiegogo. It's got.
So in other words, it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, it doesn't really exist yet. Although they do seem to have a team with some interesting credentials, some experts in human-computer interface, some AI, well, what they call AI, and then some app building people, and there's a couple people that they all got relatively interesting resumes. So it looks like it's possible.
Well, the design of the thing seems very kind of, cute.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing. One of the guys in the team is an expert in like animation, like in animating the characters.
Yeah, that's right.
So they could try to.
It looks like Kenny.
It does.
I'm gonna not play the rest of the video here, but
that was
there's a lot of marketing stuff in here. It's interesting, and in the video it looks really smooth. But I think that they're dreaming, knowing a little bit about the technology and the state of at least the natural language recognition. We all kind of have an experience with that, and that's the state of the art. What you're using in your hand when it comes to Siri and when it comes to the auto recognition on Android, that's the state of the art. They would have to build something better than that, which is a stretch. You can pre-order this. They are $4.99 is like the price point where you can just get one. And then they have all these other add-ons. Like I said, they have 3,000 some supporters and have already raised $1.5 million. So they're going to do something.
Brian?
But I suspect it'll be disappointing. What?
Brian?
Yes?
We totally need to start a fundraiser for some sort of virtual skeptics-based robot friend.
Yeah?
That's what we should do. Like,
okay.
How do you know one of us isn't already a robot?
Good point.
Good question.
How do you know it's not? I didn't just build you guys.
Oh shit!
This is
We're
all just,
in Brian's matrix.
This is all.
We're all
actually,
figments of Brian's holodeck.
Well,
Or
I wouldn't
call
actually be
you
using the technology.
Decker?
Do you have dreams about unicorns?
So does it turn out Brian's the intelligent designer? Well.
Oh God.
So you come across a turtle.
Mm.
The turtle's on its back. and is helpless. What do you do?
As long as it doesn't
Get it a
involve a
shrink.
trolley, I will.
Never mind. I went deep.
I know.
Actually, that's not
I
that
got
deep.
it,
That's
I
not.
just
Yes.
didn't know the correct response.
That's a Blade
Because
Runner.
it's
We're
a
going with the Blade Runner thing.
montage thing.
Yep. So, so we've got the creepy, cute thing that doesn't exist, but you can buy, which will eventually. Because watch the video for that. There are scenes that'll just creep you out, and it's like, okay, so who here thought Teddy Ruxpin was the creepiest thing ever?
Me.
Everyone did. Why did the people who make it and market it not know that? That's the vibe I get from this. How are the people who are intending on making this thing not know that it is the creepiest thing
Forest
ever?
for the trees. After you've been working on a project like that for
Yeah.
4 years and you've been staring at it and playing with it, you forget how a new person is going to experience it.
Well, also they think they're dealing with kids, and everybody thinks that kids are vastly different from adults that way. And
well, in the case of this thing, they're definitely marketing it to adults. And the other thing that I was actually on Facebook talking to Jared Kaufman, because he had some comments about it as well, is that a lot of the things it does we already have on our phones, and we're not going to need another device that does it. Now, if it does the natural language and the interface very, very well, which I doubt because the technology just isn't there yet, then maybe some people are going to buy it as a luxury item.
I lost my phone yesterday. I mean, it's back. Don't worry, it's all right. But if my phone could catch up with me, that would be great.
This thing doesn't walk. Yeah. Now, the other thing I didn't mention, it does, because it does the facial tracking. One of the line items they say that it's supposed to be good at is being able to take pictures and video. So, like, if you have a bunch of people over for a barbecue, it can be the photographer, apparently, and take a lot of
And it has its own tripod.
people. I don't know. But, yeah, apparently it takes a lot of pictures from across the room or inside the house when you're in the barbecue, or looking up at you, and I don't know.
I mean, it's like a little upskirt machine.
Yeah, it's a little creepy.
Thanks for going there. It is very creepy, that's for sure. So, those are my two stories, and I'm sticking to it. We got one more person that needs to speak, and I'm going to give her some time. I'm sorry, I'm not using all the time. Eve has got some stuff. What is your stuff? Eve says, oh.
Well,
he's got some shit.
If you could bring up the first slide, start there.
Yes, there you go.
Nice, so nice.
Now, this photograph appeared in the catalog of I Am Chait Galleries and Auctioneers. This is the description in the catalog.
I don't like modern
The
art.
headline, enormous and rare coprolite. And the description, this truly spectacular specimen is possibly the longest example of coprolite ever to be offered at auction. It boasts a wonderfully even pale brown-yellow coloring and terrifically detailed texture. To the heavy botryoidal clumpy surface across the whole of its immense length. By the way, the next slide is a close-up, so you can see the terrific.
Oh boy!
I like there's 4 things for it underneath it.
Oh my
God.
The passer of this remarkable object is unknown.
It's Jolly Green Giant.
Continues, but it is nonetheless a highly evocative specimen of unprecedented size, presented in 4 sections, each with a heavy black marble custom base and eye-watering 40 inches in length overall.
Does it really say eye-watering, or did you add
yes,
that?
it does.
Wow.
There's a link to the website.
Oh boy!
Wow.
How
Wow.
much would you pay for such an enormous and rare fossilized turd.
There's more.
With such
More.
terrifically detailed texture.
I want to know what the add-ons are for this.
Yeah. I know, it's hard to put a price tag on, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, the winning bid was close to the lower end of the pre-sale estimate, which was between $8,000 and $10,000. However, I.M. Chait's 22% commission means that the bid of $8,500 resulted in a payout of $10,370. NPR points out that $8,500 works out to $212.50 an inch.
Wow.
So just think of that for a while.
Wow.
Unfortunately for the buyer, this piece of shit may be
Literally.
a piece of shit.
Okay, am I the other one trying to figure out how to make that?
Oh my God.
According to the catalog, Coprolite was deposited in the Miocene and Oligocene. That would make it between 6 million and 20+ million years old, although most people stick closer to 6 million. It was unearthed in the Wilkes Formation in Washington State. And despite its wonderfully even coloring and terrific texture, it's almost certainly not actually a coprolite.
Well, it's 40 inches long. That's your first.
There have been some very large animals that have existed. If it were for a human, that would be quite something. Quite a few lumpy mineral things have turned up at Wilkes Formation sites, and these are often identified as and sold as coprolites by fossil dealers. However, many examples have been examined by experts, such as paleontologist Patrick Spencer and geologist George Musto. Spencer, for instance, cut open hundreds of supposed coprolites from the Wilkes Formation and found no evidence that they had ever been inside any animal. They lacked vegetable matter, bits of bone, and other indigestible bits. Similarly, Musto noted the absence of internal inclusions and a scarcity of associated vertebrate remains. Instead, what they found was the ferruginous minerals siderite and limonite. According to a National Geographic article, Spencer suspects that volcanic ash settled into the swamp, turned to clay, and was eventually squeezed so intensely by overlying sediment that it shot through the knotholes of dead trees. The effect was like squeezing a tube of toothpaste, Spencer says, creating a squiggly mass. And the term faux poo has, in fact, been bandied about.
Faux poo.
Yeah. Now, Jack
That's
Chait.
clickbait.
It's like, that's my favorite Chinese restaurant.
Jack Chait, the director of the Natural History Department at I.M. Chait, admits the uncertainty of the identification. He says none of us were really around, which is perhaps my favorite use of the were you there argument. Were you there when it either was or was not dumped?
I'm glad I wasn't.
Yeah. So none of us were there in the Miocene, he says, so we have to rely on our educated guesses and that sort of thing. However, the listing doesn't mention any uncertainty about the object's identity as a coprolite, and Chait says he stands by the description. I should mention, though, that Spencer published his paper on pseudoturds in 1993, and Mustow's article is from 2001, so this isn't brand new, people going, yeah, I know, it looks kind of like a turd, but really, they're not turds. Now, while this may be a rare occasion where a purchaser is disappointed to learn that what he has bought is not a colossal pile of shit, and while scientists may be frustrated by the misinformation being spread about, every turd has a silver lining. Actually, I'm not sure they do. But let's just say that they do. If this were a genuine coprolite, its sale into private hands would be a huge loss to science, seriously. Scientists can learn an awful lot about animals from their dung, whether it's fossilized or otherwise, particularly of extinct animals, that they can't learn from other remains, such as bones or teeth, particularly information about diet, parasites, overall health. They can make inferences based on, or inferences about diet based on an animal's dentition, but dung can either confirm or falsify those inferences. So in conclusion, I suggest a new slogan for the auction house that sold the fake coprolite. We don't know shit.
There you go. But somebody, and presumably multiple people, actually look for and collect and pay for piles of shit to display in their houses.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I've seen
The conversation
archaeologists.
Yeah, that sure as hell is something to talk about over dinner.
Yeah, it's a conversation piece. Check this shit out.
Wow, that's some serious shit, man.
Oh God, okay. I have a question,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of a
It might be
complicated one.
time to mute him again. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well,
I blame entropy.
the mechanism that they're positing, how likely is that? Because it seems really involved. First you have to have this. You have to have an ash deposit, and then it has to become clay.
I don't know. There have been a couple different explanations for how they formed. You can check out the show notes, some of the articles in the show notes. And I don't know. You would have to ask like a paleontologist or geologist. But
is there some sort of ethical requirement to say this might not actually be the piece of shit you're looking for?
Yeah. I actually would kind of think maybe there should be.
I mean, yeah, because if you
Barbara's
knew
lost
that the house was possibly haunted or whatever, or that there might be something wrong with the plumbing, that you'd have to disclose that before you sold the house.
And they actually they include the weasel word that it's possibly the longest one ever sold.
We're losing Barb here. She's just gonna fall over.
But there is no a question in the description about the fact that it is actually a coprolite. So, and from what I can see, the consensus among the people who know about these things is that they're just not. It just isn't. No one, none of them have actually inspected this particular one, but many, many, many other poopy-looking things from that site have turned out not to be poop.
I just imagine this. They call in the expert. So looks really closely at it. Uses a loop.
Yep.
Yep. That's shit. Yep. There you go.
Probably 20 different, terms about what kind of grade and clarity.
Clarity.
Yeah.
But they're looking for
It has a
inclusion.
luster.
Yes, the
It has a
consistency
luster.
rating alone.
And of course the terrific texture and
Yes,
consistent color.
Color and yes, it's a little piece
Clarity.
Yeah, clarity.
Corn.
Yeah, corn instead of carrots, I think.
Barbara's gonna die.
I think we've dumped the story as far as we
Kill
can.
Barbara.
Okay. Thanks for that. That interesting story. Yes, this shit will never end.
my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting a bunch of screenshots of Barb.
Make sure you do. Make sure you do.
Oh, God.
I guess that's all of our stories. Let's do a wrap up. While we're trying desperately not to.
Let's just pinch this one. Let's just pinch it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Oh, God.
Yet again, I blame entropy. So, trivia question. Who got the trivia question, Tim?
Amanda got it right.
Yeah?
And also somebody else. Oh, Miranda also got it right.
Yeah,
like
they were really close in time, yeah. Yay, so that's a round of applause.
But the answer was, yes, a round of applause. Yay. But the answer was Michael Shermer. He recounts a story in the
I knew it.
in the early chapters of Why People Believe Weird Things. That he used to believe a lot of weird things and had kind of a skeptic epiphany while doing a bike race.
He was
about the supplements that people were trying to feed him to keep him going on the bike race and whatnot. And it was on. He has the exact date. It was August 6th, 1983.
Yep. And it's interesting. Go ahead. Finish. Nope. Okay. Yeah, I just when I first came across Michael Shermer, I had already known his name because of the Race Across America. So my dad is a big bike race fan, and I knew about the Race Across America. I did not realize his other connection, but I found the stories about trying to do everything you possibly can do to get that edge when you've already pretty much exhausted all that your genes will let you do. Yeah. So, interesting. Thanks, Tim. Okay, the two things on the screen behind me. I apologize. These were hard ones, but they were very relevant. First up, no one got it, which I'm not that surprised. It was difficult. On my right screen, your left, is the web feed from the it's the YouTube channel for the ESA program to rendezvous with Rosetta, which came to a head this week.
Yeah, we're orbiting a comet.
Yes, we actually have a man-made robot orbiting a comet, and it's taken 10 years for it to get out there. And there's a website I'm going to link to in the show notes that has a really good visualization of the orbital path this thing took. And it did like 3 swing-bys of Earth, and a number of orbits, and finally swung out there really far to meet up with the comet. It's really cool stuff. The other one is also space science, but not as cool. It's the web feed for the last SpaceX launch, which was the AsiaSat. It's an Asian telecom satellite they put up, and commercial space is ramping up. It's doing great stuff. There you go. So those are the two feeds. I'm sorry nobody got it. Blake did a really good job trying, and probably came close to at least saying it's something space related. So a couple people guessed Mythbusters, and sorry, it was a really hard one. Okay, so announcements and then book time. Bob has a segment on skepticality. You want to talk about your segment, Bob?
It's about Jews. It's about lizards. It's about Jews who are lizards.
Okay, that's interesting. So go check out Skepticality this week if you want to know more about that stuff. Atlanta Star Party, Dragon Con. Tim, you want to mention anything more about that? Still coming?
Thursday, August 28th, right before Dragon Con. If you're going to be in Atlanta on that Thursday and you want to do a fun event, register. You get $5 off your ticket with Krelnick 2014.
Yep. Okay, and one more thing. I wanted just to apologize because I'd mentioned it earlier and wasn't specific. I was on another podcast last week called The Mythwits, and it was Brian Olvera, who's their news reporter on the show, that had mentioned the Jibo, which is why I went and looked it up. It's a funny podcast. Go check it out. Book time. Who wants to go first?
Wait, you forgot.
What?
I just realized. Skepticrap was on the list.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can talk about it though.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we hadn't decided we were going to talk about that or not, but now we have to mention it because it's relevant.
I couldn't not say something.
Yes.
So what is this skeptic crap you're talking about, Barb?
I'm sure it's a very serious deal.
The odds must be crazy, but it's totally coincidental. Yes, it's a very serious deal. No, I normally wouldn't announce this or launch it yet, but people can go in and use the forum, and I thought that would be today would be a good chance to tell people to go sign up and use the forum because I just got it up and it's not even really put together. But you can actually post and talk to each other there while I'm building the site. So it's skepticrap.com, and there is a button for forum, but when you go to the site, you'll see like the sample page for WordPress, and all of that. But it's going to be
skeptical about your crap.
Yeah, we're skeptical about this crap anyway.
Okay.
Everything except skepticism. It's just going to be, fun stuff about skepticism.
Okay. So fun stuff, no crap.
I think we know what should
Probably
be
lots of crap.
Skeptic crap. Okie doke. So now is book time. Who wants to go first? I'm going to take down the crap slide, by the way.
I know what your header picture should be.
I think so.
I'd never get anything done. I'd be laughing all the time.
Well, we can get a kind of a fancy, like one of those black and white line art. It'd be all arty and nobody would know what it was, but you would know that it was a gigantic fake piece of crap.
Anybody watching the show would know.
Yes. You want to go ahead with your book, Barb, since we're all watching you laugh and trying to get a straight face?
Comedy book.
Serious stuff. When gender is salient in the environment, or we categorize somebody as male or female, gender stereotypes are automatically primed. For several years, social psychologists have been investigating how this activation of stereotypes affects our perception of others. But more recently, social psychologists have also become interested in the possibility that sometimes we might also perceive our own selves through the lens of an activated stereotype. For, as it turns out, the self-concept is surprisingly malleable.
Okay. Eve?
Somewhere amid the narrow lanes, the congested wharves, the stables, workshops, forges, and fairs of the medieval city of Strasbourg, Frau Trophäa stepped outside and began to dance. So far as we can tell, no music was playing, and she showed no signs of joy as her skirts flew up around her rapidly moving legs. To the consternation of her husband, she went on dancing throughout the day. And as the shadows lengthened and the sun set behind the city's half-timbered houses, it became clear that Frau Trophäa simply could not stop. Only after many hours of crazed motion did she collapse from exhaustion. Bathed in sweat and with muscles twitching, she finally sank into a brief restorative sleep. Then, a few hours later, she resumed her solitary jig.
Bob? Are you ready?
Yeah. In the full blood of racial anthropology that followed the publication of Clarke's commentary, it became commonplace to seek links between human races and primates. Comparative anatomists suggested that different primates were affiliated with different races. The orangutan was variously linked to Malays, Europeans, Mongols, and the yellow races in general. What matters here is not the precise racial linkage, but the suggestion of sufficient affinities so that those with a desire to do so could argue that an ape-like Nakhesh could function not only as a tempter of Eve, but as a sexual seducer. Not you, Eve.
Okay. Awkward. Tim?
On October 5th, 2001, the world learned what evil can lurk in the heart of a Muppet.
Oh, God.
He was first spotted in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, at an anti-American rally. He was in the background, almost hidden from view. But there was no question it was his unmistakable visage, jaundiced and unibrowed, glowering angrily over the right shoulder of enemy number one. The next sighting was in Jakarta, Indonesia. Again, he was hard to pick out at first. cameramen from Reuters and the Associated Press didn't even notice him in their photographs for a few days. But there he was, directly behind the figure of Osama bin Laden. It was Bert, pointy-headed resident of Sesame Street, roommate of Ernie, pigeon fancier, an apparent right-hand man to the most important and most violent terrorist of modern times.
Whatever this book is, I gotta read it. Now I want you to relax, Dr. Russell said to me. The colonials had wheeled the younger me to the other crush and were about in the process of placing the body into it. It, or he, or I, or whatever offended, offered no resistance. They might as well have been moving someone in a coma or a corpse. I was fascinated. I was horrified. A small little voice in my brain told me it was good that I had gone to the bathroom because before I came in, or otherwise I'd be peeing down my leg. How? I began, and I choked. My mouth was too dry to talk. Dr. Russell spoke to one of the colonists who left and turned a small cup of water. Blah, 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 blah. A clone, I said finally. No, Dr. Russell said, not exactly. The DNA has been heavily modified. As you can see, most obviously, that body is green. I'm going to leave it there. I kind of screwed it up, but hey. Barbara, what's your book?
Delusions of Gender by Cordelia Fine. The real science behind sex differences.
Interesting. Sounds interesting.
Okay.
Very good.
Eve?
The Dancing Plague, The Strange True Story of an Extraordinary Illness by John Waller.
Dancing Plague. That should be, that's a band name.
Dancing
Dancing Plague. That's my 80s ska band. Go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
Mine was Religion and the Racist Right, The Origins of the Christian Identity Movement by Michael Barkun. It features heavily in the skepticality thing I did this week.
Huh. Interesting.
Michael Barkun is great.
Tim.
This is a relatively new book called Virtual Unreality by Charles Seif. Just because the internet told you so, how do you know it's true? It's all about lies on the internet.
Well, the thing about the Muppet terrorist, that is true.
Well,
I saw the pictures.
yeah, I did too. It's got to be true. Mine is Old Man's War by John Scalzi. I started this series this week, partially because he had announced on his blog that it's been optioned as a TV show, which is, so far, it's really interesting. So, there you go. If you don't know Scalzi, read him. It's good stuff.
If you like Star Trek, Red Shirts.
Yeah, Red Shirts, which I think that one's been optioned for a movie or something like that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a miniseries on FX.
Ah, that's right. That's right. Okay, then. Have we done everything we needed to do? And we're only 13 minutes over? Wow, that's amazing. That's pretty cool.
It's usually an hour show, folks.
Yes. We haven't gone
to
2 hours yet. I'm going to put the logo up, and I'm going to thank everyone for watching. Thank you all for watching. And this is the music thing.
We were visible last week when the logo was up. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll actually dance this time then, because we know we're being watched. Virtual Skeptics is an introduction of what'stheharm.net, Skeptical Humanities, myself, ICBS Everywhere, and Doubtful News trying to get really high. Our logo was designed by Sarah Mayhew at sarahmayhew.com. Our theme music is by Music Canned and used with permission. No poop was harmed in the production of the show. Stutters.